Well, good morning. I'm Joe Arlo, and it's an honor to stand at this memorial today. I am a official ambassador and community organizer for the organization of Forefront. I'm going to say a few words about my husband, Greg. He was one of more than 200 veterans who took their own lives in 2011. And Greg was a warm and funny and very intelligent and loving man of great depth. And I have to say that he was a man about whom you could say that he was a Renaissance man without hyperbole or irony. He was incredibly widely read and an expert naturalist and geologist and avid outdoorsman. He climbed Rainier probably over 50 times. He was a dog whisperer and had a wonderful sense of humor, which certainly helped us through difficult times. Part of his life story is that he did serve in the Navy as a lieutenant and a medic, and he served with special force teams around the world, which, as you know, is a highly stressful and difficult job. He suffered for many years with advancing chronic pain and increasing disability and PTSD, which at the time because I did not know any other military folks, I really did not understand all that entailed. He also suffered from something that I would like to refer to as a moral injury, which is something that I also did not know about until recently, and it's discussed in a book by Karl Marlantes, a book called What It Is Like to Go to War, which I highly recommend for anyone wanting to know what that experience is like. And a moral injury essentially is that you have participated in actions or committed acts of violence that deeply violate your own moral code and that of society. And it is very difficult to come back and to reconcile with how you can be a good and loving and lovable person, even if the things that you have done in service are because it was your job. So that is something that I also, as I said, did not understand that aspect of his suffering. I often say that his death was like an asteroid crashing into my life, but it helped to push my life in new and often incredibly beautiful directions. And one of those is that over the past several years, I changed careers, and I've had the opportunity to work with many veterans organizations who are doing really incredible, particularly peer-to-peer support work to prevent and intervene in suicides for their fellow service members and veterans. It's an incredibly growing area of work in the last few years, and I'm very proud to participate in that. And I just want to quickly just mention some of those organizations. The Mission Continues, Growing Veterans, the Bob Woodruff Foundation, Garden Raised Bounty and Victory Farms, Save a Warrior, Seattle Stand Down, and Team Red, White, and Blue. And I'd also like to shout out to our superhero, Alfie Alvarado, from our department here. She's amazing and seems to show up at everything all the time, everywhere, and we love her so much. And also, thank you so much to Governor Inslee and to Trudy Inslee and to our DC delegation, particularly Patty Murray. So there's a lot of great work and hope being done around veterans and suicide, and I encourage you to get involved. Thank you.
My name is Michael Ramirez, and I'm honored to be able to share my story with you this morning. In March of 2001, I left for Navy basic training at the age of 18. At the heart of joining the military was a desire to do my part, to serve my country, to be one of the good guys. 5 years later, my enlistment was up. I'd been a crew member of 2 ships and counted myself lucky never to have been in combat. I did, however, remain in the Naval Reserves, which had begun the practice of sending individuals to augment U.S. Army personnel in support positions in Iraq and Afghanistan. Fall of 2009, I received orders, and by January of 2010, I was gone. I was on my way to Kabul, Afghanistan, and to say that I was nervous is an understatement. To be honest, I found my emotions raging from low-level anxiety to full-blown panic attacks from the moment I stepped foot on Afghan soil. I never experienced direct combat, but I was far from the relative safety of the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers that I was used to. I felt isolated, exposed, and completely unprepared mentally for what I was experiencing. A little while later, my orders came in and said it was time to go home. I was ecstatic. I was more than ready to go back to my normal life. But I soon found that it would be far from normal. Coping with the day-to-day was an incredible chore. Crowds, loud noises, people in my personal bubble, all quickly became unbearable. It wasn't long before I was diagnosed with moderate PTSD. Fast forward to January 2015, I was dealing with severe untreated depression, and my wife and I were just trying to make life work. Both had careers, little kids, and the marriage itself was suffering a little bit from all of that. And so we sought counseling, as you do, and my depression continued to worsen. By the end of the summer in 2015, I began to have the thought that if things weren't going to get better, and I just wanted the pain to stop. That thought was the beginning of forming a plan of ending the pain completely. I had the firearm. I knew where I would do it. I knew the timing. One afternoon at marriage counseling, our therapist began to inquire about the state of my mental health, almost off the cuff. She was forceful, but very kind in her questioning. She asked very direct questions about self-harm. Did I have a plan? Did I have the means? The questions opened the floodgates in me, and all of the bottled up emotions of the years and the plan and details came flooding out. I confessed that I did have a plan, how I would end the pain, but that in all honesty, I was too scared to carry it out. The therapist asked me to find a new home for my firearm, but I was hesitant. When I got back from Afghanistan, I felt naked without my weapon. Giving up my weapon now might incur that same feeling of exposure all over again. Eventually, we decided to keep the firearm in the home, but to lock it up under lock and key, and me not have access to the key. And it was difficult to admit that I wasn't strong enough to maintain possession of it. But the care that was shown by my therapist and my wife helped me to see that this was my best option. It would be almost 6 months of therapy, support, medication before I began to shake those dark clouds. And I still struggle occasionally. But I'm no longer hounded by the thoughts of self-harm that I once was. I think with time, I will only see more and more improvements. Standing here in front of you and telling my story is certainly difficult. But I do it to say that I empathize with those who find themselves in similar situations. It's my hope that we as a society will continue to find ways to protect and reach out to those who are vulnerable, who are nearing the end of their strength, and show them that they matter, that we care, and we won't give up on them. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Mary Richards. These are my parents, Jim and Julie Richards. And I just want to start out by saying that we realize that many of you today here have lost someone to suicide, and we're extremely sorry, and we offer our sincere condolences to all of you. And to be honest, the fact that I'm here and somebody else is not something that I know. So we're here today to tell our story of hope. I was asked to speak about hope and how it got me out of my lowest point. But to be honest, when you're so depressed and anguished that the only logical option in your mind is to escape all of it, there isn't any hope. I did not have any hope. I told my parents over and over again that I was a lost cause. I was so deep in my depression that I genuinely thought there was no way out except to opt out of life myself. But despite my lack of hope, it still is hope that kept me going, because it was my parents' hope that kept me alive. They would not give up on me, no matter how many times I told them to. And they could see a future, my future, a future where I could survive and thrive. And not only that, they could see a future where I was happy again. Although I was the one struggling with mental illness, I thought they were crazy, because couldn't they see I wasn't worth it like I did? But they never stopped. And little by little, they pulled me out of the hole of depression until I could start seeing the light and the hope growing brighter and brighter as I began to recover. Finally, I saw a future for myself, and I began the journey to being happy again. And for that, I owe my life to my parents for holding on to that hope while my arms were too full. Now I'd like to introduce my father to speak.
Very hard to follow that. First, I want to start out by saying I know my family is lucky. Our daughter survived. And I know that many here have lost loved ones. And I can't imagine the pain that you felt and the pain that you still feel. And I want to let you know that we're so very sorry for that. We were asked to talk a little bit about hope today. When I look at the markers out here, the number of markers, and I think of the life stories of each of those people and the pain that each represent, I wonder, is there hope? Can we see a light at the end of the tunnel where we no longer senselessly lose the ones we love? And during our daughter's darkest days, we said, we'll carry your burden, we'll be your hope, we'll never give up on you. And we thought we were alone. And I think probably many of you have felt that. Try to get a child psychiatrist, try to get a child therapist, try to find a bed. It's very disheartening. And so while we did think we were alone, we as going through this process, we realized that we were all in this together. And there is hope. And I see hope in people like former Representative Lynn Kessler, Tina Orwell, Ruth Kagi, Tana Sen, Senator Oban, all these people who care a great deal about what happens here and what happens to our mental health system. I see hope in the fact that the stigma of mental health continues to recede and that we can talk about it and we can get help without the embarrassment or the fear or the guilt. And I see hope in the fact that all of you are here today talking to your legislators and making a difference. And I have to say, after 6 years of very dark times, I now see hope in my daughter's eyes. And that's thanks to so many people like you, people that have worked with my daughter and worked with us. And as I said, my family was lucky. Maybe in the future, we won't have to all rely on luck to save those that we love.